Hi there, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in this lesson. In this one, we're going to talk about different ways of simplifying. Now, one of the first things I want to introduce you to is the different criteria we can play around with and change in order to simplify a scene. If you remember, I talked about how basically it means reducing something or removing it altogether. So you can reduce and remove all sorts of elements that relate to the shapes and the details, the values, the colors, the temperature, and in this one I want to show you how all of these are pretty much done. And I think the best way to demo this is to work on the same subject matter to really show you the differences. So we're going to focus on just this pineapple. I'm going to show you multiple ways of simplifying it just to open your mind to the range of possibilities. So with that, let's get to it. So I'm going to go over these relatively quickly. Again, we will expand upon every concept here later on, but for now I want to show you a distinction you can make already in the drawing stage, and that is how detailed and how accurate you go with the drawing. So what I'm doing here is I'm carefully measuring. I made sure I got the oval shape correctly, and then I place a lot of guidelines that help me see in which shape the leaves wrap around the center part of the pineapple, and then I'm going about rendering each and every individual leaf, giving a lot of thought to its shape. And I want to show you this up close. You see, I'm really looking at each and every one of them, and I'm following the pattern I see, trying to get it as accurate as I can. When you're working this way, it is important to place a couple of really good guidelines, and don't let the time-lapse mistaken you. I have put here quite a few guidelines to let me know where the middle axis is. I kind of moved to the right a bit, but I really put in a lot of details to know what I'm basing this off of. Same goes for the edges, same goes for all of these small details in the rounded shape itself. I'm dividing it into the sides of light and shadow. I'm really carefully following it the way I see it, and very often this will not be how I draw for a watercolor painting. I'll actually draw much more loosely and more like eyeballing a lot more than in this one. So let me show you this kind of a quicker drawing. You see, just placing in the oval here, placing in a bunch of leaves, or whatever these are called, these kind of petals, putting in that texture really fast in, making some corrections, yes, and then I'm kind of putting the leaves where I see them. So this is more of an impressionistic drawing, really. The difference is subtle, but it is there. And it really has to do with the process, just putting that shadow there. You see, it was much faster. This took probably a quarter of the time of the previous one took. So this will be a quicker approach. And this really sets the framework for the painting. Okay, you have to remember that. Now let's talk about simplifying the values. In this quick example, I'm showing you how I basically divided into a light value and a dark value. The light is paper white, and the dark is kind of a mid value there. And the reference photo really demands it, because there's a beautiful kind of light and dark patterns on it, and it's very straightforward with that. It's not always going to be this obvious, but I did want to choose a simpler one here. Okay, so I don't try to imitate each and every value I see, and I will show you later how I am trying to go for that look and getting a much more realistic and detailed result. So you will see the counter to that. Okay, now I'm going to get in a background really light, kind of simplifying it. So I'm just putting it out there, covering everything up and really working around those leaves just to get some negative shapes going. Okay, so this will kind of help create a better sense of depth. And after this one, I do want to show you an example with color. However, it's going to be in color, yes, but I'll still keep it simplified. And the way I keep it simplified, you'll see in just a moment, is by still using only 3 colors. So I'm basically reaching into my palette and picking up every time a different color, but it's just out of my 3 primaries. So I'm using a bit of phthalo blue, a bit of yellow new gamboge, and a bit of this spiral scarlet, or a more gentler Quinacridone Rose, depending on my mood, really. But you have to understand, even when using colors, it still is very much possible to keep things very simple and yes, I simplify the values too, but by just reaching onto a few colors. Okay, so you don't have to really try and mimic every color you see. In this example, I'm going way different than the original one, obviously. But you don't have to try and mimic every color you see. You can look at an area. Is it well lit? Use a bit of yellow. Is it
darker, use a little bit of blue, use more of a naturally darker color. Okay, and adding this quick background, it was kind of an improvisation with red just to, I don't know, give this an interest, a little punch of interest to it. But this just goes to show you my quick approach to simplifying in a few different ways. And we will see some more detailed demos later on, as I mentioned.
So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope seeing the pineapple simplified in multiple different ways helped you to understand how I approach every one of those ways. We will expand upon them later. I do think this is a pretty good subject for this kind of a demo because it has a variety of different shapes contained within it. You get the sharp pointy edges, you also get the rounded, smoother shape, you get the leaves, you get all sorts of interest just based on the merit of the shape itself, and you can play around with that. And I do want to mention one last note. Notice how some simplification can be done already in the drawing stage, so it's very important to focus on that, which we will in an upcoming lesson. So not only the painting stage, but also the drawing and sketching stage. So I hope all of this makes sense. When you're ready, I'm going to see you in the next lesson.